Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. And we've had some exciting shows the last few days. All of them are out on the archives. We've talked about codependency a lot for about the last 4 shows. The call-in number is 646-200-4169. If you have any questions, call in. We are having a little bit of a challenge right now with the chat room. As soon as it's up, we're out here in the middle of the desert, and sometimes technology runs a little slow. Here's Dr. Michael Ryce.
Welcome to our show today. Our caller's on the line. We've probably got Dr. Tim there and Terry. Oh, you got in the chat room? Oh. Okay. Anyway, we're having fun learning all this technology stuff. This is a relatively new thing for us, especially being out in the middle of the desert where you have a slow internet connection. But anyway, welcome to the show. We're delighted that you're here. And our conversation the last 3 or 4 days has been about codependence, and we're going to continue that codependence conversation, looking at what makes up codependent relationship. And, of course, the core tool that we teach is one of the keys in how to change codependent relationship. To shift from codependence to interdependence takes forgiveness. And the forgiveness process not being one of I let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me, but rather I go inside of me and change what's happening there. If you're not familiar with that tool, please jump on our website, www.whyagain.com, and there's a link on the right-hand side that says Download Worksheets. So if you click on that link, the first 2 links under that connection are a copy of Chapter 24 from my book, which explains the forgiveness process from the Aramaic, and the second link is the worksheet itself, so the how-to of forgiveness. And in essence, what it consists of, what the forgiveness process consists of from the Aramaic is nothing to do with I let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. Nothing to do with you caused my pain. When we're in codependence, we have somebody else to blame for what's happening inside of us. And of course, getting to blame somebody else for what's happening inside of us doesn't do anything to change what's happening inside of us. Forgiving somebody else for what's happening inside of us doesn't do anything to change what's happening inside of us. And so the forgiveness process from the Aramaic is that of going into the hidden parts of our own minds where the cause of our pain is and changing the source of our pain. So that's what we're here to talk about today. That's what we're here to support you in. And the last 2 days we've been talking about what I call the pseudo-solutions of the non-being mind. And those pseudo-solutions are those things that what we call the non-being mind, the self-based in hostility or fear, is in the belief that if I did this, and there are several different pseudo-solutions we've gone over, then everything will be okay. And, of course, people run around trying these pseudo-solutions over and over and over again and hoping to get a different result. These pseudo-solutions will never produce a different result. And so the last one we were talking about yesterday when the show completed was when I put my pain into my brain's image of you, I get to feel my pain, but I actually think it's yours or caused by you, which, of course, is a pretty silly solution because the pain still goes on and there's no resolution. But if we can language you made me, then we get the satisfaction of being the innocent victim, and that seems to be the payoff for a lot of people. One of the questions I'll ask in the workshops oftentimes is, how many have ever been to an organ recital? You know, people think, of course, of people playing an organ, and then I offer, yes, the situation where people talk about who had the last organ removed, who's getting the next organ removed, and and that mine was the worst the doctor had ever seen, and people who play the victimhood game tend to run in that kind of a circle. And it's copying a pattern that was established by the power person. And the power person we introduced on, I believe it was Thursday's show, or was it Friday's, Gene, do you remember? I believe it was Thursday's show, our first show on codependence. And a power person is somebody who had more power over your life at some stage in your life than you did. And if that power person used this solution, I'll put my pain into my brain's image of my child here. Usually it's a parent, though not always. And I blame the child because I'm upset, and I throw lines at them like, you're stupid, and why are you doing this to me, and why couldn't you be different, why couldn't you be like your brother, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the average person, never rising above that, follows the family pattern, and they put their pain into their brain's image of, whoever else is handy, whoever else shows up. And when we do that in order to keep from facing our pain directly. It's felt but never dealt with. It's never faced directly because the mind pretends that it's about somebody else. And I'd offer that feelings, turmoil, pain, have nothing to do with external events. Pain and turmoil have to do with what's happening inside of us. It has to do with the content of our own minds. Recognizing that our pain has to do with the content of our own minds, when we hook our pain up to our brain's image of someone else, we all of a sudden render ourselves unable to go into that part of our mind and clean it up. And so the forgiveness process from the Aramaic shows you how to collapse that whole dynamic and get back directly in touch with the root of your pain. And it's not Dr. Feelgood to do that. However, it leads to healing. It leads to stepping out of the game of having to protest everybody else's behavior, but needing them to function that way, so I have somebody to blame. And so when we decide to look and face directly our pain, and of course the question becomes, how can you tell if a pain that you're feeling is yours or not? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Are you feeling it? Then you know who it belongs to. So the person who plays the projection game and plays the game of codependence still feels their pain, but now they're thinking it's somebody else's, or at the very least, thinking it's caused by them. Pain, turmoil is never caused by external events. It is only caused by the content of your own mind. And so when you directly go in and deal with that issue, you won't have to deal with it forever. If you don't ever directly deal with it, then you'll get to deal with it over and over and over. And we tend in that state to live in what we call blockage truth. Don't tell me the truth. Don't tell me I'm the one who's been there every time. Don't tell me my pain's got anything to do with me. And don't tell me for sure that I actually have the power to change it, because if I had the power to change it, then I'd have to get out of my victim role. I'd have to give that game up. And so as you forgive, you start to let go of hidden part of the mind, and we get to play a different game. So the person who plays out of this dynamic of putting their pain into their brain's image of someone else, they live in the world of, I found the guilty one. They did it to me. They put me in hell. And, of course, I'll go out and I'll just gather all kinds of people who will support my story. I'll find all kinds of people. And, of course, the people who don't support my story, who want to hold me accountable, I'll want to get rid of them. And I'll go find people, if you're a male and you like to blame women, then you'll go find other men to sit and chat with about how it's all those women's fault. And if you're a woman, you go to the coffee clutch and you chat about with your friends, the ones who are in resonance with men are the problem in the world. You'll sit and you'll talk about how men are the problem in the world, and you'll build evidence upon evidence upon evidence, and you'll never heal yourself that way. That just leads to more of the insanity. And the insanity is that anybody else could cause something to happen in you that isn't yours. So for someone who lives in codependent is anyone who agrees with them, and the enemy is anyone who would hold you accountable for what's going on in your mind. I was talking to our friend Dr. Andraki last night, and he was speaking about a patient he had recently, and this patient had some issues to deal with in their lives. And the patient, as he explained some responsibility, her response was, look, just give me my pills. I don't want to hear this. And, of course, he says, no, you said, what do I need to do to heal, so I'm telling you. And finally she stood up and she said, I'm getting angry, and left the room, left the consultation. And, you know, that's kind of the John the Baptist game. If you remember, John the Baptist delivered information to the king and queen that they didn't want to hear. They were in blockage and truth of it. Anyone in codependence is in blockage of truth of their responsibility for what's happening in their lives and in their relationships. When truth shows up, what happens inside of a mind that's in blockage of truth, the stress goes up. And the tendency will be to puke on whoever it is that brings the truth forward. So in that case of John the Baptist, he brought the truth forward to the king and queen. They didn't want to hear it, and so they literally took off his head. Be careful if you're going to play that role, because when you play that role of John the Baptist, and there are two skills you haven't developed, which John had not developed these two skills. One of them was knowing when to hold the mirror up, and the other one was knowing when to duck. If you don't know when to duck and you don't know when to hold the mirror up to let people know that it's their issue that they're feeling and that they're dealing with, they'll tend to want to take off your head and blame you. And so that's one of the games. And in that case, the people enjoy the sensation of their pain because they get to be right, or they go into their rage and their drama, and they literally drug themselves with rage, with trauma and trauma. And because of the sensation and the chemistry created in physiology from rage and drama and trauma, it feels like some kind of power, like they've got some kind of control or power. But in fact, they're doing the exact opposite. In codependence, by blaming someone else, you give your power away. And so when you give your power away, you appear powerless. But actually, the power that you gave away by blaming to someone else is simply tied up in your brain's image of that someone else. It's still there. It's still yours, but you can't claim it while you're putting it into your brain's image of another. And so codependence is a way to give away the power. And then what will tend to happen is a person who wants to stay there will bask in the darkness of everyone who will agree with them. So the person who plays the game of somebody else causes my pain, this pseudo-solution, then loves to bask in the darkness of that person who will agree with me. I got somebody else who's in hostility or fear and has had a similar situation, has found somebody to blame, and darkness leads to more darkness. You know, there's an ancient physicist who understood the impact of energy on human physiology and the impact of words. And he said that the power of life and death was in your words. Words of darkness, words of death are words based in hostility and fear. If you sit around in conversation with people that will agree with you in your hostility or fear, if you sit around and hang out with rage and grief and pain and your conversation's all about what's wrong in your life and how they did it to you, you literally are creating cellular chemistry that will kill you. Power of life and death is in your words. Now, you may be lucky enough to find someone, if you're ready to heal, that gives you the gift of not getting lost in the emotional content of your story. And you know, if you're not quite ready yet, you may even think that person's cold-hearted. I personally, and people are kind of shocked sometimes, love to watch people in their deepest trauma and their deepest pain. It's something I just delight in. And people say, what are you, some kind of sadist? No. Actually, I delight in it because I know that with love present, that which this person is now getting in touch with is going to begin to dissolve. And on the other side of it is healing. And so when you recognize that, the person who you hold the space of support for, instead of getting involved in sympathy, which is lower path behavior, oh, you poor baby, look how terrible this is. When you are the space of love and you hold the space for someone to go into their deepest pain starts to dissolve. It starts to disappear, and they heal. It's exciting to watch somebody go there, and who's willing to go there, because a lot of people are not willing to go there. So if you find someone who will give you the gift of holding that space and will hold the light to assist you in dissolving your self-created hells, what you will find is that you will unload those burdens. You will go through the process of healing and come out the other side without your hell. And you'll find then in the future that it's difficult to get back into that hell because all of a sudden you're done with it. And so if I choose to heal, the power to heal me is not in someone else's hands. The power to heal me is inside of me. I have specific steps to do. That's the forgiveness process. And then there is a power inside of me that will change perhaps a dynamic that has been going on for 1,000 generations of my bloodline. The non-being mind, the mind based in hostility or fear, loves to tell its story and loves to be right and will be right all the way to its own self-created hell. Past and current realities, remember, are plastic. Reality is the output of your mind. If you have someone who's in their codependent state and they explain to you how the pain was created by somebody else and it's all their fault, and you show them a logical step-by-step way to understand that that was not the cause of their pain, what will happen to someone who's committed to codependence is they will totally forget that they told you that story that was now proved illogical. And the plastic nature of reality is they will flip and shift into a whole different conversation, a whole different reason why that person was responsible. And once again, if you prove that one to be illogical, they will forget that they had two stories that proved that somebody else was responsible for their pain, and they'll come up with another story and another and another and another. This plastic nature of reality, it yields to the goal of the moment. And if the goal is, I'm right, they're wrong, it's settled, why argue, then my mind will keep hallucinating all the codependent evidence it needs to prove that somebody else is the problem in your life. I'm going to invite you to notice you've been through a particular painful reality, 82 different people. You're the only one that was there every time. And when your mind tries to reorganize victim status and its story and justification, its rationalization for it, what we invite you to remember is that ration lies. Your mind can rationalize 1,000 different reasons why somebody else is the problem. But you were there every time. And, you know, it's really good news to recognize that you're the problem in your life, because now you've got the power to change it. Although if you've been taught that responsibility for what's going on in your life and your mind means that you're at fault, you're to blame, and you're guilty, then it's not very good news. But once you realize there's nothing in the word responsibility about guilt, there's nothing there that says it's your fault, there's nothing there that says you were to blame, there's nothing there that says you were wrong, you just engaged in an energy that didn't belong in your structure. And as you realize that, you will begin to see totally different possibilities in your life. And moving from codependence to interdependence, awesome things start to happen in relationship. So the mind, in codependence especially, continually adjusts its output according to the urging of 1,000 generations of non-being and the genetic goals of non-being. And what you could do is step into you could step into an actual human life and experience the active presence of your humanness, which is love. And we establish the nature of human life when we hold a newborn. I would offer that you and I and 7 billion people on the planet are designed to live out of that newborn status, the active presence of love, with the newborn inner sense, the awesome presence of being, the love, the purity, the sweetness. Human life is what we're designed for. And instead of the blaming that 1,000 generations have done, you can start to take responsibility and remove the realities that are painful. Again, that's called forgiveness. Forgiveness has nothing to do with letting others off the hook. And once you realize that, then you start to base your reality structures in a mind fueled by love. And that results in a life of power and creative possibilities instead of the old, why is this happening to me again, or why are they doing this to me again? If there's hostility or fear in your mind, that means that your mind is using corrupt data to produce its reality. And if it's using corrupt data, it's telling you a lie. Don't trust your mind whenever it's in any form of hostility or fear, because if you trust it, it will always lie to you. It will always tell you how somebody else is the problem in your life. It will always lock you into the codependent state. And so that's the pseudo-solution of putting your pain into your brain's image of others. Let's check with Jeannie and see if anybody's in the chat room with any questions or comments, or if we have any callers to bring in a question.
We don't have any callers, but there's some conversation going on in the chat room. You had brought up people changing their life, and Sam had actually shared that she was doing a breath session with someone last week, and another person who was in the room, not the person who was breathing, screamed and left the room. They apparently thought she was leaving her body or something, and it brought up something for them, and they weren't about to stay, and so they walked out. And I told her that we had actually been doing a Mind Shifter Still Point Breathing weekend, and the person I was partnered with got up and walked out too, and he was actually breathing. And I told him, I said, this is what holding on looks like. Do you want to change? And or do you want to keep doing things the way that you've been doing them? And he surprised me. He said, yes, he just wanted to keep doing things the way he was doing them. So some people aren't ready for change, I guess. But anyway, and we want to welcome Les Peebles back. And they've been missing for several days. They went and visited some friends. And so everybody who's been on there, we've been talking codependence. They're all archived on our radio, on our site under Mind Shifter Radio. And so you can go out and pick up what you've missed.
Hello, Lesson family. We're glad you're back in the game with us. And Jeannie's just pointing something out here. Ask Michael if sarcasm is hiding under anger. Well, they kind of can switch places. The root of the word sarcasm means to tear flesh. When I was a kid, I came from a family system where there were certain uncles in particular that if they didn't use sarcasm, they wouldn't have never spoken to each other. They couldn't have said a word because every word that they used was based in sarcasm. And so in my family system, sarcasm was looked at as something humorous and sharp. It meant you were witty. If you could come up with the best cutting comment, you were the sharpest, knife on the block. And when I started to watch the effect of it as I became more conscious and started to do this work, I realized that this was not a good thing. And when I really started to look under it, what I found was that sarcasm is our culture's socially acceptable way of expressing otherwise unexpressible rage. And one of the pieces of the work is to start to tame your own tongue. If you go back into the ancient scriptures, you find that they understood the quality of person it takes to take charge and change their word patterns. What they said was, he who can tame his own tongue is mightier than he who can take a city. Because our word patterns come from 1,000 generations of realities. And if our family system didn't function out of responsibility, if our family system functioned in codependence, then our genetic structure is made up of codependent language. Our realities are based in codependent language, and it's always somebody else's fault. And as you recognize that, then you get a chance to start to shift and change and go to the depth of the rage that's beneath the sarcasm. When you get to the depth of the rage that is beneath the sarcasm, you'll have major, major opportunities to learn forgiveness. Now, there's a workshop we do called Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And in that workshop, we point out that when I'm in pain and I talk about somebody else, I'm pretending that my reality doesn't belong to me. So if we're in a conflict situation, what happens in a conflict situation is most people talk about how they're in pain, and then their conversation goes on and delineates how it's somebody else's fault. Their words are all about everybody else but themselves, the one who's in pain. And so what we look to do with this work is to change that dynamic. And so someone who, let's say we're in a conflict, and let's say cancel the thought, Jeannie gives me the look. This is a demonstration we do in our Healing Through Relationships workshop and video. Imagine Jeannie gives me the look, and that brings up hurt for me. And if I'm in codependence and I use projection language, I'll say, Jeannie, you really hurt me when you said that. And so now I'm pretending that Jeannie, again, cancel the thought, can cause something to happen in my mind, and Jeannie can't do that. And if I'm in pain and sarcasm is my family system's verbiage, then I'll tend to make some kind of cutting, sarcastic remark to lash out from my pain. And hostility is the fastest way there is to go into codependent relationship. It's a way to lock into that state of codependence. And so the alternative to that would be, Jeannie, you know, when you said thus and so, that brought hurt up for me, and I realized that I've got some hurt in here that I haven't dealt with, and I'd really love to give my hurt. Would you support me? Now we have a whole different dynamic happening, with a different possibility. My mind is going to show me a totally and completely different reality when I language how I have hurt rather than you hurt me. And, of course, in the workshop when we present this live, the next question we ask is, okay, how many were brought up in the home where Dad, when in upset, turned to Mom and said, you know, dear, I have rage coming up in me, and when you said thus and so, that really, intensified, helped me to intensify my rage, and what I realized is I really need to be about healing my rage. Dear wife, would you assist and support me in doing that? Now, of course, most people just laugh up, hilarious laughter at that because it's almost never been seen. That's a question that we've asked of thousands and thousands of people around the globe. And it was interesting, about 2 months ago, we were in Florida, and we did a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop on a yacht there. And I asked that question. And there was a young man who was about 23 years of age. Actually, that young man was on the show about 2 weeks ago. And he put his hand up. First time I'd ever had somebody, when I asked that question, put their hand up. His father had studied with me 25 years earlier. First person I'd ever seen that had a father who, when in pain, would say, I have pain, this is mine. And just the change that makes, the dynamics that shift in a family system where we actually move into responsibility instead of blame is absolutely awesome in the way that it shifts and changes things. So, yes, sarcasm relates to unconscious rage. It is rage. And rage is one of the most common drugs on the planet. It is the fastest way to jump into codependent relationship, and whoever you point your rage at is who you're hoping will change your mind and who you're blaming for what's going on in your mind, which, of course, is ridiculous to blame somebody else because there's something going on in your mind. And when you shift out of that codependent state, and one of the first stages of doing that is to start to language, I have pain, and now instead of talking about you, I'm going to talk about me. Gee, I have pain, and it feels like this, and I don't know what to do with it, and I need help, I need support. Would you do a worksheet with me? Would you breathe me? Would you do a responsibility communication program with me? 1,000 solutions for the non-being mind to shift back to being. Would you support me by holding the space of love for the healing of my pain? And what happens when someone can hold the space of love, the actual active presence of love is there. That presence of love dissolves everything that's not true. And anything based in hostility or fear, by definition, is not true. To the perceiving mind, it seems like the truth, but it's not true. And it is all totally and completely forgivable. It can all be totally and completely removed. And the whole essence and idea of this work is to support you gathering the ancient Aramaic tool in particular of forgiveness so that you can remove all bases of all hostility, fear, grief, rage, hatred, vengeance, pain, blame, and turmoil, and live a life of an actual human being. That is, the presence of awesome love, of awesome caring and gentleness and support and being. A mind that has only been structured in hostility or fear can't fathom that. In our workshop last night, by the way, we're in Pahrump, Nevada, and if you have a question for us, please call in. Our number is 646-200-4169, 646-200-4169. And you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.com with a question. Of course, in the chat room, I was sharing with the group last night, we're out in Pahrump, Nevada. We've got 2 more workshops if you happen to be in this territory. Tonight we're doing the Circle of Life and how to play it. Tomorrow night we're doing the workshop, this workshop we've been talking about, Codependence to Interdependence. It'll be live, 7 o'clock tomorrow night in Pahrump, Nevada at a place called Universal Wisdom Center. And then on Thursday night we'll be at Healthcare Partners Medical Center doing a support group working with the forgiveness process. So anybody that's in this territory, please come and share with us. But last night it came up in the workshop, we did healing through relationships, and I spoke about the work we've done in Albany, Georgia, in the prison system. And we had a classroom there, and once there was a pretrial release program that we participated in. We cut recidivism in the prison by over 90%. And there's one particular event that stands out in my mind so powerfully. Albany, Georgia, if you're not familiar with it, is a pretty rough town. One of the roughest around, I think. And there was a fellow who was probably about 6'6", maybe 340, 350. This guy looked like he would eat you for lunch. He just had a look about him. I wouldn't want to have met him in a dark alley. He'd been in and out of jail almost all of his life. He had been sentenced to laws of living as part of a pretrial release program where we talk about the action of keeping love present in your mind. And I'll never forget, my partner's name was Dan McDougald, and they used to call him Mr. Mac. And this 6'6", 360 pounder comes bounding into the office. We're getting ready to start class, and this guy comes bounding into the office about as excited as any 3-year-old you've ever seen be excited about something. And he says, Mr. Mac, I get love present all week this week. He's a guy who spent most of his life in jail. He's learning the tools. He's learning to forgive, rage, grief, hatred, vengeance, the inclination to be a thief, the inclination to be a criminal. He's applying the tool of forgiveness to those things in his mind and removing those things from his life. We cut recidivism by 90% in that jail. And the sheriff got rid of it because he had no inmates. He was collecting a per diem rate from the state. No inmates, no pay, no money. Gee, wouldn't that be a shame if we put every jail in the country out of business? It's sad. Back a few months ago, Jeannie was doing some research for one of her papers in school, and came across a report from an investment house that spoke about how there was some bad news for investors, and the bad news was that the federal prison population had dropped. That was bad news for investors. I would think that even if one were into making money off of prison investments, that if they were actually living a human life, they would say, folks, this is going to cost us something, but here's some of the best news we've seen in our lives. The prison population is dropping. But investment houses call it bad news for investors. How insane and how bizarre is our culture? It's time for us to wake up. So, Jeannie, any questions or anything happening in the chat room or callers?
Actually, Les is going to try to call in here in a few minutes, so he'll come through as a Skype call. But he did have, he said that he was surprised and shocked at how many times I'm writing on reality management sheets and have the feeling of rage or verbal violence. I guess I need to keep on processing. And I told him that there are genetic issues that have been around a long time in their bloodline, and it takes a while to keep doing to get it cleaned up and just to be willing to keep on doing his work. Then he also said, my trigger for using the reality management sheets is currently upset, offense, or hurt. Should I be doing them at any other time? And so you want to address that?
Well, the starting point, the whole issue we're talking about here, the base of it, is codependence. And codependence we define as wanting to make somebody or something outside of us responsible for what's happening inside of us. So most people start with their painful realities, the realities based in hostility or fear, and dissolve them. But once people kind of get through that, they'll begin to do reality management worksheets on the good things that they're wanting to make other people responsible for, like you make me happy, you make me blah, blah, blah. Anything that says you make me, the good, the bad, and the ugly is all codependence. And what we want to do is come to the point where we are conscious creators, and we realize that nobody makes us anything, the good, the bad, or the ugly. And so as you wake up to that, you start to take responsibility and move to another level. Is that Les that's coming in?
573.
Area code 573. You're on the air. Give us a name and where are you calling from?
This is Heather.
Hi, Heather. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually in Virginia. 573 is Missouri, however.
Oh, okay.
I've worked with Sam Featherton.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, and she had suggested that I give you a call.
Well, you are blessed if you've worked with Sam. She has been doing some awesome work with people.
Yeah, she has given me a great gift, that is for sure. I right now am. I spoke with Sam the other night, and I had a situation come up a couple weeks ago. And it just really hit me like a ton of bricks in the last few days. And, as we discussed, it pointed back to my power person, who happens to be my mother.
Right.
I had a situation with a friend of mine. I'm on a board. I serve on a board at a theater, and she is the president, and I am the vice president. And there was a decision that was made, of which I was part, that she was very unhappy with. She is extremely manipulative and kind of does anything she can to get her way, and she didn't, and lashed out at me verbally, kind of screaming and yelling. And it just really turned my world upside down and has brought up a lot of issues for me. And I've kind of been bouncing back and forth between depression and anxiety, especially in the last couple of days. There is a history for me. My father is an alcoholic, bipolar as well. A lot of abuse in my background. Every time I think that I've gotten to a point that okay, I'm doing good now. I've done a lot of work and things are rolling right along. Then it's like something else hits me, and just kind of struggling right now.
So that's awesome. So what you're telling me is you have this friend who's giving you the gift of showing you some of your internalized depression and bringing it out so you have an opportunity to get rid of it. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Oh yeah, it's pulled up all sorts of stuff for me. I feel like, that 7-year-old kid again.
Yeah. So going back to a reality of the 7-year-old being abused is an awesome gift for your friend to give you. Now, it sounds like her behavior has been pretty bizarre. So the Greek philosophy would tell you to forgive her. We're going to suggest you never forgive her for that. Okay. However, you may choose to be kind enough to pardon her for her bizarre behavior. In fact, you may actually thank her for being so bizarre that she became bizarre enough and played this out with you so that you could look at the 7-year-old energies that were still locked in your tissue structure, creating disorder and disease. And now that it's come to awareness, you have the opportunity to apply forgiveness to those issues of a 7-year-old and throw them out. So that's an awesome gift in a sense. So you may choose to pardon her for that, maybe even thank her, and then you'd apply the tool of forgiveness to the reality that's still stored in your tissue structure of a 7-year-old being abused and manipulated and taken advantage of. And so the forgiveness process would be, there could be several different worksheets that you could do around that issue. You could do a worksheet on her, with her name as number 1A, and go through, here you are yelling and screaming, manipulating, and I feel I feel rage and pain, and my thought is I'm back to being 7 years of age. What do I want from you? I want you to treat me lovingly, gently, and respectfully. I want you to remain my friend. And then the step 5 would be I cancel the goal for you to treat me lovingly, gently, respectfully. And the non-being mind says, that's crazy. Why would I cancel that goal? Well, I cancel that goal because if I'm in pain because I hold a goal that accesses my pain. And when I cancel that goal, in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag. It literally means to cancel. When I cancel that goal, what happens is I collapse the projection and the codependent dynamic that says what I'm feeling is about her. What you're feeling is about the pain you experienced when you were 7 years of age. That's still stored in your tissue structure. You want to get rid of it. So instead of applying forgiveness to her, you apply forgiveness to that pain of the 7-year-old. And so when you have a goal for somebody to behave a different way, and they don't behave that way, and their behavior elicits some old painful reality in you, the way you get directly to that hidden part of your mind is by canceling that goal. That collapses the projection. And now that you've collapsed the projection, you can go back into the hidden part of your mind and change its content. Otherwise, what happens is, the child at 7 goes through this pain and trauma, has no awareness of what to do about it or how to deal with it, so they stuff it down. No. They hold their breath. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to look at this. I don't ever want to deal with this. And so we create, when we deny things like that, a dissociated mind. And then the behaviors, the feelings, the thoughts in the dissociated mind run our lives. And so applying forgiveness to that dynamic allows you to take stress and the burden off of the part of your cellular structure that is the part of your mind that holds that pain of the 7-year-old, and you get to be free on another level.
The other kind of half of all of it is that I sort of had a realization through all of this that I really use food to suppress, those feelings and those thoughts, and that was a difficult thing for me. I've spent my whole life trying very hard to stay away from addiction, knowing how prevalent it is in my family, and it was a real hard reality, kind of Godsmack, to realize I'm doing exactly the thing that I've tried so hard my whole life not to do, and I've had a really hard time. I've had a really hard time forgiving myself for that. That has been plaguing me about as much as anything.
So I'm going to suggest you never forgive yourself for that. I'm going to suggest that you might want to pardon yourself. Remember, the Greek idea of forgiveness is actually pardoning. So you might say, boy, that was really bizarre of me. And being a creator, trying to avoid something, I create what I avoided. Powerful acknowledgement of yourself as a creator. So I pardon myself for that creation, and now I'm going to do the forgiveness process to go inside myself to remove that addiction. One of the reasons why codependence and addiction always go hand in hand is because the codependent has no way to address or get rid of their stress, because the stress is internal, but their brain hallucinates pictures that makes it look like it's caused from the external. So as long as I think it's caused from the external, when it's actually internal, there's no relief in the internal. There's no way to get rid of it. There's no way to find relief for it. And so sooner or later, that person is going to find some substance, circumstance, or activity with which to anesthetize and at least get some temporary relief from the pain that they're experiencing. So all addiction is based in, I don't want to deal with something inside myself, and therefore I dissociate from it, and the stress remains in my tissue structure. When I choose to forgive, I remove the stress, the addiction drops away automatically. It'll simply start to disappear. So in this work, in this codependence work that we're doing, and if you want to take it to another depth, you might want to jump on the website and order the DVD of it. The definition we give to addiction is the compulsive use of any circumstance, substance, or activity to do one of two things, and that is to either avoid my guidance. I have a genetic history that says I'm going to run out and do this, and there's a stress created when my higher self, my higher guidance says, no, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it the way we know we should. That creates a stress. Addiction eliminates that voice. So that's one reason for addiction. And in my experience over the years, the other reason for addiction is I have this pain inside of me. I refuse to own. I refuse to forgive. And therefore, when I find an anesthetic that shuts the pain down that maybe I didn't even know I had, then I consider this anesthetic to be good, this addictive substance to be good, because it gives me at least momentary relief from my pain. And as you work on the core issue of the pain of the child of 7, you'll clean that out. And recognize another level of this, and that is that, one, you can only heal at depth the things you have the vitality to heal. Imagine that we've got a vitality meter that goes from 1 to 10, and you have a level 7 toxic experience from being, a child. But you're at a level 5 vitality because of the way that you eat, the way you exercise, the way you interact in the world. You're at a level 5 vitality. You can't clean out that level 7 toxin when you're at a level 5 vitality. As you do your work, you'll build strength, you'll build strength, you'll build strength. When you get to a level 7.5, all hell will break loose. That level 7 experience from, the age of, somewhere in childhood will now break loose and be up in your face, and you get to forgive it. And as you become more and more vital, what ultimately this work is about is going back and literally deleting from our body's memory system every reality of pain in our bloodline. You're not just going to get to deal with your life. You're going to get to deal with your whole genetic structure. In the ancient Aramaic, where they were talking about physics and physiology, not theology, they said the sins of the fathers, and of course we could add the mothers in there, will be passed, yea, unto 3 and 4 generations. They said, look to the lives of the fathers, and as I say, we could add the mothers too, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. Literally, you and I, as energy systems, are storing every experience that comes to us holographically in every cell, and that includes the sperm and the egg. Were you to conceive a child tomorrow, that child would have in its structure every thought you've ever thought, every feeling you've ever felt, every reality you've ever engaged in. Do you have children, by the way?
I do not.
You do not? Okay. Well, if you did, I was going to say, And notice that because you don't function 100% as love, you would be that child's power person, just like your mother was your power person. As long as there's an unconscious part in us, and that gets triggered, we'll play out of it. It's against our own will and choice. We'll play out of it. You go back and you listen to Paul, and Paul says, after all this wonderful writing about love, he says, why is it the things I would do, I cannot do, and the things I hate are what I do? Whenever those things are triggered into activity, if we don't have forgiveness, we'll tend to play those things out. So lest you get stuck, and one of the things when we talk about the power person dynamic is people then tend to get stuck in the, you see, it's my power person's fault, that's why I'm like this. And that's just another codependent reality. When you start to remember that your power person had a power person, who had a power person, who had a power person, who had a power person, this has been going on for so long. And it's simply time for us to take responsibility and clean it up. And, of course, when we have children, one of my favorite lines about children is that having children is like having your unconscious mind hang out in true living color and Dolby sound. Les was just sharing with us in the chat room a minute ago, and I hope he's going to call in, how rage has come up for him. And then, watch how when that's ready to heal, all of a sudden, one of the kids will play it out, and I get to do another layer of work. It's awesome. And it's very much like in a family system, as in community, Les and his family, and we're really looking forward to them getting to Heartland. They're coming over from England for 3 months. Les and his wife and 2 children are coming over for 3 months, and they're into community building. And one of the things that's really well known in community building is that there's going to be chaos, that when people come together, until they function out of being, all their individual realities are going to play out, and it's going to be crazy time. And it's the same in a family system. And what tends to happen is family systems invent a thing called punishment. Well, let's beat up on the kids so they don't play out what we don't want to look at. And that's the dynamic of punishment. And so forgiving that dynamic of punishment, we get to the real thing of discipline, and discipline means properly taught. So we properly teach our children rather than try to force a stop button into them so they won't play out what we don't want to deal with. And so as a child in your family system, if your dad was an alcoholic, you can bet there was lots of pain and trauma for mom and for dad. Dad was anesthetizing himself. And so you would naturally be the expression that would play that out, and what the family system would tend to do would be to turn on you and try to inflict punishment on you so you'd stop playing out what they didn't want to deal with. And it's been going on for so many generations on the planet. And, the contribution that you make, whether you have a child or not, is irrelevant. As you heal, there's a wonderful line in the Course in Miracles that says, as we heal, we never heal alone. We open the energy window for everyone. So I acknowledge your courage for being able to look there and being willing to go there and open the healing of this pain of your 7-year-old self. Because every 7-year-old on the planet that's suffering the same pain right now has a little wider doorway to walk through in healing because you did your work. And that's called critical mass. So I acknowledge you and thank you for the willingness to go there and do that work.
Thank you.
Is there any other way we can support you?
I think that will help for now. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, please, as your process unfolds, feel free to call in questions, thoughts, refinements we can give. We delight in having some live interaction that gives us real-time experiences because, you're not the only one who's in this boat. We're all in together. And when we open the space, when one person opens the space and the question, others will go, oh, my God, that's me. I got it. And they get to work through it. So thank you for your courage. And I think Jeannie's got something to share with us from the chat room.
I was just going to share that Les had, he was getting ready to call in on Skype, and he didn't call in, and he finally come back on the chat room, and he said his mother-in-law called, and now he had to do some worksheets. And but then he said, I'm going to try to call again, and so we kept waiting, and he come back, and he goes, even Google is giving him an opportunity to do worksheets. Where are my worksheets? Oh, they're right here beside me. So he says he'll call in tomorrow.
That's cool. Well, Les, we're delighted that you're back online with us, and we certainly look forward to your whole family arriving and creating a space of support, of healing on the next level, all of the family dynamics, with those 2 young children. The work that you're doing will bless them and your future generations in ways we could hardly imagine.
And so Les has another question. Is it okay to make a note of an issue and then complete the worksheet later in the day?
Sure. Actually, Les, if you go to the website under worksheets, you'll see and I'm not sure how it's titled, but there's a worksheet there that just has a couple of steps in it, a quick form. And on one sheet, you can list 6 worksheets. So, what we suggest to people is that they keep them by their desk in the office or, in the kitchen when you're cooking, whatever, and you don't have time to stop to do a full worksheet, that you can just jot a step or 2 down. Jeannie's just telling me what it is. Yeah. Quick form, 4 major steps for quick forgiveness. So you can do that, and so what we suggest is you just make a note of what those deeper worksheets are, and then, later when you've got the time, you go back over that quick form. And the quick form has the key steps in forgiveness that you can just kind of, go through quickly, and then do the deeper process a little later. And Jeannie's smiling and grinning here, so you must have come up with another good thought, Les.
No, this time it's Sam. She said she used to have to do a worksheet every time she heard you say, "Oh, you have an opportunity."
Oh, Sam, I just love the opportunities that you have to learn forgiveness, and I'm so delighted that you're willing to do it and to give the awesome support to others. By the way, is the support group operating in Springfield at this point, Sam? And we'll see, and that we can direct people in that direction. There's actually a gentleman. It's not? That's not the okay. There's a gentleman in Springfield, David. He's been on the call a couple of times, or in the radio show a couple of times now, and he's in Springfield, and he's really been jumping in and doing his work and working with his family. So if he hasn't connected with you, we'll have to make sure you guys get connected and create support for the next level in the healing process. We're down to 2 minutes. Oh, my goodness. Oh, cool. Fabulous. Okay. So Sam is just saying that she's working on getting the support group started up again. It had taken an intermission for a while. We did a series there last year before we left to go on the road, and the support group started, and then it took an intermission. So if anybody's in Springfield, Missouri, and you want to be part of a support group, contact Sam. Let's get it together and get it happening there. The depth, I don't know, is Dr. Tim here? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I was just going to ask Tim. He's been doing a support group continuously. I think they missed 1 week in 5 years, and that was just back a few weeks ago. They had a horrendous snowstorm in Chicago. And
It'll be 6 years this summer.
6 years this summer. Awesome. And you just missed that one, right, in 6 years?
Yep. It was the only one where the group was closed down.
Yeah. And is it miraculous when it continues and people stay committed and move?
It is miraculous.
Yeah, sure.
It is enough to make me donate 1 evening a week as a therapist for the past 6 years. So that'll give you some idea of the value.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're delighted that you're out there in Chicago doing a support group every week. Where does it meet, Tim?
We meet in Crystal Lake at an offshoot of the Unity Church in Crystal Lake at 135 Beardsley in Crystal Lake.
So anybody can jump on the website and get a link to that if you're in the Chicago, Crystal Lake area. Dr. Tim's doing awesome work with people, and I think we're down to about 30 seconds. And so I guess tomorrow we'll continue with the next of the pseudo-solutions of the non-being mind, and we're looking forward to each of you integrating these tools, passing them on to others. Please invite somebody who's never been on the show. It would be really nice if you'd support us by helping us to grow the show and bring someone else forward to work with it. And what you'll find is as you build your community for healing, you get to go farther, and you get to have the best year yet of your eternal life. And that's what we're here to support you in, absolutely having the best year yet of your eternal life. We hold you in the blessing. Bring a stranger tomorrow, and we'll see you at, well, whatever time zone you're in. We're at 11 o'clock here. Blessings.